Father Junipero Serra was one of the most famous explorers of California. He is also a controversial figure today. Pope Francis canonized him as a saint in the Catholic Church during his visit to Washington, D.C. in September of 2015. This spurred the most fervent protest against the canonization ever. This honor, and several other honors, such as his statue in the National Statuary Hall, have provoked an outcry of protest from those who see him as a villain who hurt Native Americans and their culture.
Junipero Serra was brutal for the California Indians. He was the first Padre Presidente. As a result of that, it was his responsibility to develop the systems and the regulations and the policies for capturing and caring for and holding the Indians. They would go out with soldiers and forcefully capture the Indians and march them to the mission. Once they got to the mission, they could not leave. They were a labor force for the missions. They were a slave labor force for the missions.
While the native society was ravaged by European diseases, these effects preceded encounters with missionaries. In fact, Junipero Serra tried to help treat their illnesses and worked to prevent the Spanish military from spreading STDs by discouraging immoral practices. The most common argument from Father Serra's detractors is that he mistreated the Native Americans and enslaved them in his missions. The historical record shows that although the Native Americans were punished for their crimes, Father Serra advocated for them and believed that they should be treated by the same standards of justice as Spanish citizens. Father Serra's letters and journals consistently demonstrate his love and respect for the Native Americans. Although the protesters have very passionate opinions, the historical records and journals show that Father Junipero Serra's exploration of the New World was motivated by a zeal for improving the lives of Native Americans and his strong convictions of faith. His encounters with the natives reflected his love and respect for them. The exchanges between Father Serra and the Native Americans paved the way for the development of California and set an example of respectful relationships between the two cultures.
The role of somebody like Serra, who had human flaws and difficulties and struggles and was set in his own time, yet had a vision and had an ability to look into a place and say, we need to bring Christianity here, share the love of God and the mercy of God with the people of this time.
Miguel Joseph Serra was born in 1713 on the island of Majorca in Spain. In young childhood, Miguel felt called to the Franciscan life. At 16, he was received into the order and took the name Junipero. Several years later, after he was ordained a priest, he was given a very high-ranking job of Lector of Philosophy at the University of Padua. After 10 years, he felt the urgent call to serve as a missionary in the New World. He arrived in New Spain in 1749. He worked in the missions of what is now Mexico until he was asked to be the leader of the missions in Alta California. Father Serra's perseverance contributed to his success as a great explorer. On his first journey in California, his leg was infected by a mosquito bite, which incapacitated him for several days and hindered him for the rest of his life. Despite his chronic pain, from the age of 56 until his death at 70, he walked thousands of miles while building and visiting his 9 missions along the coast of California. Father Serra's perseverance is also demonstrated by his strong work ethic. He rose early every morning, even on the day he died, tirelessly seeking to convert the Native Americans and to improve the missions. Father Serra's faith was his motivation to persevere. As a child, he heard stories of a nun named Maria de Jesus, who was given the gift of bilocation and was told by St. Francis that the native peoples of the New World would convert at the mere sight of the Franciscans. This, along with the decree made by Jesus in the Bible to go and make disciples of all nations, were the 2 main reasons Father Serra was inspired to exchange his faith and ideas with the Native Americans. His preparation in both agricultural and spiritual matters was another key factor in Father Serra's success. In childhood, his parents taught him how to be a successful farmer. Later, he developed teaching skills at the University of Padua. His knowledge and experience served him well in his mission. It also helped develop great virtues like selflessness, perseverance, and courage, which aided him later in life. Father Serra welcomed encounters with the Native Americans. When he was building the first mission, San Fernando, he had yet to see any natives until one of the other missionaries reported that a few men and boys were coming their way. he enthusiastically sprang to his feet to go and meet them. He ensured the success of his encounters by hiring interpreters so he could exchange his thoughts and faith with them. It also allowed them to trade cloth for food. He also encouraged the Native Americans to learn Spanish. On one occasion, when Father Serra was traveling up the coast, they encountered a tribe of Native Americans who had never seen Europeans before. The missionaries were amused to discover that they had been mistaken for the children of mules. The missionaries quickly assured them that they were men like them and enjoyed a pleasant exchange through their interpreter, who was a young native from the mission of San Fernando. Another incident demonstrates the love the natives felt for Father Serra. One late December night, he was exploring the coast near Santa Barbara when a huge rainstorm halted their journey and left them stranded by deep mud. Suddenly, a familiar group from the Chumash tribe came out of nowhere and rescued them. They carried Father Serra to safety. Along with the many positive encounters were several that were violent in nature. After the building of the mission in San Diego, some of the Native Americans in the area grew tired of the presence of the missionaries and the soldiers they brought with them, so they burnt the mission and killed one of the missionaries and several of the soldiers. Despite his sorrow at the loss of his friends, Father Serra pleaded with the Viceroy of New Spain, begging for leniency towards the natives who burned the missions. He wrote, "Most excellent Lord, one of the most important requests I made of the most illustrious Inspector General at the beginning of these conquests was, if ever the Indians, whether they be Gentile or Christian, killed me, they should be forgiven. While the missionary is alive, let the soldiers guard him and watch over him. That is as it should be, nor do I disdain such a favor for myself. But after the missionary has been killed, what can be gained by campaigns? Some will say to frighten them and prevent them from killing others. And as to the murderer, let him live, in order that he should be saved, which is the very purpose of our coming here, and the reason which justifies it. Give him to understand, after a moderate amount of punishment, that he is being pardoned in accordance with our law, which commands us to forgive injuries, and let us prepare him not for death, but for eternal life." This is just one of the many examples of Father Serra's merciful approach. Father Serra desired just treatment for all people dwelling in the vicinity of his missions. His desire for justice and mercy to mark the exchanges and encounters between the natives, the missionaries, and the government led to his plea to the Viceroy Bucareli. This plea is frequently referred to by his supporters as his 32-point Bill of Rights. While they don't resemble our Bill of Rights, they do reflect Junipero Serra's conviction that the natives were equal in dignity and value, and thus should be treated with the same respect and concern. He asked for the missionaries to have the power to send immoral and abusive military officers away from the missions. This was intended to create a safer environment for the Native Americans. He also requested that responsibility for discipline should be returned to the fatherly care of the missionaries. He pled, "Therefore, no chastisement or ill treatment should be inflicted on any of them, whether by the officer or by any soldier, without the missionary father passing upon it. It is quite in conformity with the law of nature concerning the education of children, and an essential condition for the rightful training of the poor neophytes." Father Serra cared about the both physical and spiritual well-being of the Native Americans. Each of his encounters was marked with fatherly concern for them and their salvation. Father Serra noted that many Native Americans died from disease. He consoled himself by reflecting that they were entering into eternal life. He wrote, "The fact is that there are many souls from Monterey, San Antonio, and San Diego now in heaven."
But, as a believer, as a priest, I don't have any hesitation to say that the coming of the gospel of Jesus Christ to the Americas is the best thing that has happened for us.
Father Serra was very ardent in his zeal for souls. In his address to a graduating class at the University of Padua, he said, "I desire nothing more from you than this, that when the news of my death shall have reached your ears, I ask you to say, for the benefit of my soul, may he rest in peace. Nor shall I omit to do the same for you, so that all of us will attain the goal for which we have been created."